Hi, so this is my video for my second portfolio project in which I studied Asian immigration to the United States, specifically focusing on Chinese immigrants, and then also kind of discussing why were Asian and specifically Chinese immigrants targeted with immigration policy.
So, the story, well, like I said, I'm going to be talking about Asian immigration, policies for Asian immigration, and really focusing on Chinese immigration because I think that's kind of like the main part of Asian immigration as a whole. Um, this story really starts with the Mexican Cession of 1848. This is when Mexico cedes California to the United States after losing the Mexican American War. This is definitely the most important time for talking about Chinese immigration to the United States because this is where the California Gold Rush happens. This is a time where thousands of people, both Americans and foreigners, are entering into California. And this occurs very, very quickly. By 1852, you have 250,000 people in California, 10% of which are Chinese immigrants. And 80% of those Chinese immigrants are adult men. You don't really have like a lot of families that are making the voyage over. These are mostly just adult men who are coming to try to make money. Some of them are probably trying to send money back home to families. Maybe they want to become rich and then go back home. But these are mostly just workers and miners. That being said, there were some families that came and, they did settle in California. However, like I said, the majority are workers. This causes problems because the American miners are essentially angry about the Chinese miners taking their wages, taking their jobs. Um, this occurs very, very quickly. Um, by the early 1850s, you have different counties who are trying to ban Chinese miners. And by 1858, you have California creating a whole ban on Chinese immigration into the state. This does not last because in 1868, the Burlingame Seward Act comes into effect, which it bans any restrictions on Chinese immigration. It's actually an agreement with the Chinese government, which also allows U.S. businesses to do trade in China. So this is beneficial to the US by giving the US an economic foothold in China. However, this also helps to facilitate the building of railroads, which relies increasingly on Chinese labor in the West. By 1868, there are 14,000 Chinese laborers who are working on these railroads, and at the end of it, 20,000 Chinese laborers will have worked on these railroads. This is shown in this photo, or, well, not this photo, in this picture, which shows Chinese laborers. I think the thing you should notice is the way these Chinese laborers are depicted. They're kind of wearing what could be described as a stereotypical Chinese hat. That's definitely intentional. They're trying to make the Chinese people look Chinese. It's a stereotype. Um, to an extent, there is some truth to the stereotype. Not necessarily that they wore hats like that. However, these Chinese laborers had no real reason to kind of assimilate to American culture. Many of these people are there just to work, send money home, and then go back home and become rich, right? Um, like I said, these are mostly adult male laborers, and they kind of stay Chinese. They aren't really assimilating to American culture. And this makes a lot of Americans angry and kind of fuels a lot of anti Chinese and anti Asian sentiments in the United States, especially among workers. This results in the Chinese Exclusion Law of 1882, which bans Chinese laborers for 10 years. I want you to look at the photo on the right, and you'll look below at the people depicted underneath the wall. They look very stereotypically Chinese, kind of in a very racist way, like a very racist stereotypical picture of a Chinese person. Again, this is intentional. They're trying to make Chinese people look different, like they're not American. They're trying to make Chinese people and Asians overall look like they're a completely different race. They're not white. They can't be white. They can't be American, right? It's that kind of thinking that is setting Chinese immigrants apart. This eventually starts to apply to other Asian immigrants with the Johnson-Reed Act and the Gentleman's Act. The Gentleman's Act in 1907 is an agreement between Japan and the US. Japan agrees to stop immigration to the US. The US promises not to restrict Japanese immigrants. The Johnson-Reed Act of 1924 bans all people from Asia while establishing literacy tests and quotas for all the other countries. These literacy tests and quotas vary by each country, but were very liberal compared to the ban of people from Asia. So in total, we can see that the reason these Chinese people are being banned, why these Asians and Chinese are being banned, is because they're being seen as not white, and because they're being seen as a threat to the wages and to the labor of white workers. This does have an effect. You can, just looking at maps of where immigration is coming from in the United States, there are vastly more immigrants from Europe than there are from Asia. By the 1850s, or by the 1950s, there have been 12 million Europeans who have gone through Ellis Island. Ellis Island is designed to facilitate all of these immigrants. Angel Island is very much designed to prevent Asians from coming in. It's almost a detention center. And you can see that in the poetry that's actually carved into the walls on Angel Island. I'll read just this one. Detained in this wooden house for several tens of days, it is all because of the Mexican exclusion law which implicates me. It's a pity heroes have no way of exercising their prowess. I can only wait the word so that I can snap Zhu's whip. From now on, I am departing far from this building. All of my fellow villagers are rejoicing with me. Don't say that everything within is Western styled. Even if it is built of jade, it is turned into a cage. The next poem has an even more depressing tone. You're welcome to pause and read it if you would like, but it's definitely very depressing. It's very sad. It's clear that Angel Island is a place where people are imprisoned. And you can actually go and still read these poems on the wall. They are in Chinese, but they're still there. Things do get better. The Magnuson Act in 1943 repeals the Chinese Exclusion Act. It allows for Chinese naturalization and Chinese immigration. And the Immigration Act of 1952. It maintains the quota system. However, it gives a certain preference to non-citizens already residing in the U.S., makes it easier for them to stay and harder to deport them. And it allows for someone married to a U.S. citizen to enter the country regardless of the quota. Now, this topic was really important to me because my grandpa is actually a Chinese immigrant to the United States. He came during the 60s and moved to Arkansas, which Arkansas in the 1960s, I'm very happy to say that he didn't really experience any racism at all. And he came into the country very, very easily. He just got a visa in Hong Kong and sailed to the United States, and that was that. So by the 1960s, anti-Asian racism really is going away, and the immigration process is getting a lot easier for Asians. Anyways, that's it. Thank you so much for watching the video.